Welcome to Stories After Midnight. Today we're going to be reading, When I was 13 years old, I solved mysteries with my friends. We never solved one particular case, the Strings murders, because I was the killer. This is part 7 of the Strings Murders series by Trashtia. I really hope you enjoy it, and a huge shout out to my patrons for helping make this episode possible. Let's get started. 2 milkshakes down, strawberry and chocolate. Both of them were too sickly with a little too much extra whipped cream, but they were good. Milkshakes were what I needed. As a mostly amateur junior detective, it's not like I could sit next to a sophisticated woman and sip whiskey like in the movies. Alcohol was off limits, so I had to drown my sorrows with either milkshakes or soda. Soda was the dangerous choice, so that left milkshakes. I thought of the cherry on top as a slice of lemon in my alcoholic beverage. My first mistake was thinking I could drink 2 shakes without serious repercussions. I downed them both as soon as I sat down, hoping to look cool. Like, oh wow, he's really going through with it. But instead I just looked and felt constipated, and now my gut was making some very interesting noises I had to cough over. My gut also told me that Eris was going to murder me before any Middleview criminal. Eris wasn't here, though I did my best to smile and wave. But I was exuding the wrong vibe, and even worse, I was aware I was grimacing. I looked like a total a-hole. "I'm on a break," I finally snapped. When heads quickly twisted back around, I found my confidence holding up my empty shake. They could glare at me all they wanted, but these people weren't going to say it to my face. "I'm sorry, am I not allowed to relax?" I was trying and failing to swallow sour-tasting cream when my phone vibrated. I only had to glance at the screen to know it was my father. The sheriff contacted me. He says you've been snooping again. I can't keep protecting you, Noah. If this happens again, I'm sending you away. Breaking into the sheriff's office is against the law. You're lucky. They're only letting you go with a warning. The phone vibrated again. Noah Joseph Presley. Dad's voice was like nails on a chalkboard when I finally gave up and answered my phone. What on earth do you think you're doing? I have a better question, I said, staring my dregs. Who wrote those texts? When I got frustrated, noises in reply, I couldn't resist a smile. Your assistant? I enjoyed antagonizing my father. Because unlike you, Wendy can actually spell your correctly. Don't be a smartass. Mayor Presley barked down my ear. Noah, have you lost your mind? Skipping school to sneak into the sheriff's office? I could imagine the steam coming out of his ears, which sent hysterical bubbles of laughter crawling up my throat. Why do you keep? Dad softened his tone, and I bit back a groan. I steeled myself, waiting for his monthly dose of parenting. Dad did the sigh. You know the one the parent does when they really want to know how disappointed you are? I wasn't used to Dad actually acting like Dad, but this was a start, I guess. Noah, I let you play detective when you were a little kid. It was cute. He paused. However, I think it's time to grow up. I've signed you up for summer camp, and before you protest, you do not have a choice. I could practically hear the spittle flying out of his mouth. Those friends of yours, he grumbled. Tipping my head back, I blew a silent raspberry. I had the best booth in the diner, the one usually reserved for Middleview business. It was always me and Eris sitting together and the girls opposite us. I was frowning at the old plush of May's seat when Dad started talking about my old summer camp shenanigans. I know you like swimming, and this place has a state-of-the-art swimming pool. I can't swim, though, I said. I almost drowned. I trailed off, almost giving Dad another reason to send me away. During the holidays, I stupidly chased a suspect across the iced-over lake and went straight through. If Eris hadn't been following, I'd be dead. I almost drowned, I corrected myself with a cough, in Eris's comically large hot tub. Dad grunted something unintelligible. Well, I'm sure you can learn. What was left of the sun was setting outside. I could barely see it behind the clouds. What is this about, Dad? I got an earful of static in response. Your friends? Dad grumbled. They're bad influences. I snorted. Oh, you mean the private school kid with the millionaire CEO father? You want me to cut all ties? Noah. My father's voice hardened. I wasn't finished. Dad expected me to befriend the kids of people he was in business with. What about Marin and May? Aren't their parents part of your agenda? You told me to familiarize myself with these people like Eris Kane, so I did. We're besties now, and have been for like 4 years. You won the town election. Everyone's happy. I shooed away the waitress when she offered me water. So, what's the problem? Dad made a sputtering noise. I believe I told you to make friends with them, young man, not recruit them into your childish Scooby-Doo fantasies. My father was speaking through his teeth, so I knew he was big mad. I don't recall asking you to start a vigilante group. You're putting their lives and your own life at risk. And for what? That's what the town wants, I muttered. Noah, stop mumbling. I chewed my straw. You're not talking to your son anymore, I said bitterly, raising my voice. Didn't you hear? I'm part of the Middleview Four, our town's best and only protectors. Since the sheriff's department can't do their jobs, I scoffed. Dad sighed. That's quite enough. The sheriff's department are working day and night to find the missing kids. Yeah? I ran my fingers around the rim of my glass impatiently. Well, they're not working hard enough. Middleview trusts a group of kids more than them. He exhaled sharply. I'm scared, Noah. I'm scared you're going to do something you regret, and I'm scared you're going to get yourselves hurt. I could hear the strain in his voice. If you continue to play these detective games, I'll have no choice but to send you to boarding school. You can decide which one. Thanks, I said dryly. Is that on top of summer camp? I was ignored. Is that understood? Dad raised his voice just enough to cut off my snark. Across the diner, a disheveled mother was taping a photo of her daughter to the door. I pretended not to see her accusing scowl aimed right at me. I shot a restrained smile. It was all I could offer. For what it's worth, Dad, I muttered, averting my gaze. If I could, I would stop playing these games too. I can't say I'm particularly enjoying finding dead bodies. I could almost mistake my father's sigh for relief. Then what exactly is this, Are you seeking attention? Dad's voice wobbled slightly. I know I'm not always home, but I've tried to make it very clear that I will drop anything to spend time with my son. I can take some days off. We can go on a fishing trip when you come back from summer camp. Did I hear that right? You're going to take off time from being the mayor while 5 elementary school kids are missing? Dad did the stuttering thing he always did when trying to correct himself. That's not what I said. It sounds like you're abandoning your constituents' issues to deal with mine. That's a big word, Noah. I rolled my eyes, and even though he couldn't see it, Middleview adults were convinced I was stupid. Thanks, I deadpanned. Are you going to tease me like my middle school teacher? I would never do that. Then why do you say it with that tone? I demanded. Like you're surprised. Dad's tone hardened. Why are you doing this? You're a smart boy, Noah. You know you're going to get hurt. I wanted to tell him I had already been hurt multiple times. I had been tied up, strung up, and almost brainwashed by a cult. Instead, I held my tongue, even when my eyes started to sting. Admittedly, it was so hard to keep all of this from my father. I made a promise, I muttered, hating the way my voice squeaked. He had a way of bringing out my inner child. I hated it. We all did. When you were 8 years old? Dad's patience was slowly splintering. I wasn't sure if he actually cared, or maybe the sheriff had said something to him. Either way, Dad definitely valued his mayor status more than his delinquent son. I wouldn't be surprised if he was trying to attract voters for his re-election campaign. Dad was yapping, and I wasn't listening. The town has changed, you can't deny that. There are children being murdered. Dad's voice wobbled. Kids, just like you. His words sent shivers down my spine. Middleview was still reeling from the angels. Marin and I were the ones who found them. 3 missing kids, murdered, their arms positioned like wings. It took me a month to get a hold of myself, and Dad still had zero idea. Still, he kept talking like he was doing a great job of protecting me. The idiot didn't even realize I'd snuck out the night before. Noah, are you listening to me? Vaguely? Dad spluttered. I can't take you seriously with that attitude. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, I can't do anything about it. All of this Middleview 4 nonsense. I try to keep you safe. but you're out there actively looking for trouble." "Well, yeah," I said dryly. "That's what being a detective is." "You are not a detective." Dad was spitting at me again. "You are a 13-year-old child playing dangerous games with criminals, and you are making a fool out of me." I hovered my finger over end call as Dad kept talking. "There are cruel people out there, Noah. Bad people who won't think twice about killing you. Do you remember the janitor?" "Mr. Cockroach? Absolutely, he was my first case." "He is also getting out of prison very soon and is already cursing your name," Dad hissed. "This is what I'm talking about when I say your actions have consequences. These people are not well, Noah, and you and your holier-than-thou friends are going to get hurt. Marin is obsessed, and we both know it." I swallowed. "She's not obsessed. Marin is just passionate." I wouldn't call her dragging me out of bed at 6 a.m. with a mouthful of flashlight, a confused and sleepy-looking heiress looming over me like the angel of death, passionate. "Don't talk, Noah. Just listen to me." His tone changed and my gut twisted. "They remember your name, son," he whispered. "All of them. These people you think you've caught, Noah. I get mail with death threats towards you. Threats I can't even repeat. They tell me they're going to tear you limb from limb and scoop your eyes out. And what am I supposed to do, huh? I get letters threatening to burn your eyes out of your sockets and I tear them up, but they keep coming." "That's an oddly specific detail," I murmured. "Why are they so obsessed with my eyes?" "Young man, that is not the point. For once, stop with the snark." "Yeah." I scrubbed at my face with one hand. "Are you taking this seriously?" I had to swallow a burp. Yes?" "Noah, stop saying yes. You're driving me crazy." "Well, what do you want me to say?" "I want you to tell me I'm right." Dad had a point, but I wasn't going to admit that. "Noah, you are going to get yourself killed. Every time you walk out of that door, I feel sick to my stomach." Dad's voice was going into dangerous territory. "How much longer until you are one of the missing?" He made a choking noise. "How much longer? Until I have to identify my son at the morgue." "You've made your point." "Good," he sniffled. "You have the whole summer camp to make new friends. I'll make an announcement and tell the town you retract your childhood declaration." "But I made a promise." The door swung open, a group of teenagers barreling through. Ace, Nancy, and their group of brain-dead specimens were my least favorite people in town. I watched the group loudly order food before slumping in a booth that was a little too close to mine. I lowered my head. The last time we dealt with them, they were witnesses in a missing boy case. Marin almost lost her cool. The bastards led us on a wild goose chase. "Hey, Dad?" I winced when Ace started his annoying guffaw laugh. God, it was annoying. I had to bite back the urge to twist around and snap at him. Marin and Eris both said the same thing. I didn't have a filter. I had to chew into my bottom lip to stop myself from telling the guy to shut up. I've got to go," I muttered. I'm kind of busy right now." I got a huff in response. "And what exactly are you busy doing, young man?" I glanced at the poster of Jesus on the wall. I'm in church." Dad snorted. "And what are you doing in church?" I could sense Ace's gaze burning into the back of my head. I gritted my teeth through a smile. "Praying?" Before Dad could give me an earful, I ended the call. And when my stomach made a gurgling noise, I bit back a hiss. Maybe drinking 2 chocolate milkshakes in one go wasn't a good idea. The lady sitting in the booth in front of me kept twisting around, shooting me odd looks. However, over the years I've gotten used to the evil eyes. I just stuck out my tongue, slurping on the dregs of my shake, which made me feel worse. I had a feeling her gaze had zero to do with the wail noises coming from my gut. Over the last few weeks, I had sunk from an up-and-coming detective to a town pariah. The Middleview Four were yet to find 5 missing elementary school kids, which was by far our hardest mystery to date. There were no links, no leads, not even a trial. Whoever took these kids was smart. The town of Middleview was getting a little antsy. I mean, it was their fault for putting their trust in 4 middle schoolers. Dad was right. It shouldn't have been our responsibility to find these kids. I barely knew what a stem cell was, but I took it upon myself to hunt down a serial kidnapper. The sheriff was being a jerk as always. He wouldn't let us anywhere near the case files, so we'd hit a dead end. All we had were Eris's meager notes and a lead that was likely crap. The girls were more optimistic, and Eris wanted to believe every lead actually got us somewhere. But I was leaning more towards shenanigans, on account of our witness being a literal 8-year-old kid. The residents of Middleview were convinced we were slacking off. Marin was caught riding her bike in the morning, parents following her like a horde of zombies, demanding to know why she wasn't on the clock looking for their kids. I wasn't scared to remind townspeople that we're not their protectors. They can't freak out and treat us like dirt when we can't solve a case. We started solving Middleview crimes and bringing the town's criminals to justice because it was fun. Not so much anymore. What started out as a hunting down missing cats and being kind of kidnapped, but not really, by unhinged old people, the 4 of us had come to realize our idealistic town was far darker than we thought. The people in our town wore masks, even the ones we were supposed to trust. We had come face to face with drug-dealing janitors, murderous teachers, and even that sicko who turned his crimes into art, which made our declaration to protect the townspeople a bit harder to fulfill. How were we supposed to know kids would start being murdered out of nowhere? My father was infuriatingly right. The sheriff's department were mostly all brain-dead morons, so it was up to us, 4 13-year-olds, to save a town that was quickly becoming more and more polluted. Even the sky was darker. I was supposed to be at the town lake or playing video games. Instead, I found myself tasked with the impossible, protecting a town that terrified me. When we found our first corpse, I barfed all over myself. We weren't expecting bodies. The Middleview 4 was established to bring down the bad people in our town, like Old Man Critter, our drug-dealing janitor. When people started going missing and being brutally murdered, our little detective gang were forced to solve progressively gorier mysteries. "Hey," Ace's voice made me inwardly cringe. "Hey, ain't that the Scooby-Doo kid?" I loathed our nickname. It didn't even make sense. The Scooby Gang didn't find mutilated bodies and hunt down child killers. What we did was real, not some stupid cartoon. Ducking further, I was aware of multiple eyes burning into the back of my neck. I considered texting Eris, but it was a Saturday and he was confined to his father's office. Mr. Kane said it was bonding, but I was pretty sure the guy was slowly trying to gaslight my friend into leaving the group. I didn't blame the man. Eris was going to get himself killed. As the brains of our operations, he was a likely target. Usually it was me. I was the damsel in distress, the guy who had been kidnapped enough times for me to wonder if these freaks just really despised me in particular. I got halfway through a text which was just "Hey, WYD," before deleting it and stuffing my phone in my lap. Ignoring the uncomfortable silence that followed Ace's yell, I turned my gaze to the window. It was getting harder to call this detective thing fun. "Noah Presley." The lady cleared her throat, and to my annoyance, the chatter around us dulled to a low murmur. Even Ace and his friends had gone quiet, which was just great. The last thing I needed was a drunk teenager's input. I didn't turn around, stirring the dregs of my shake into a thick sludge, pulling my baseball cap further over my face. Marin was right. I should have been wearing Ray-Bans. Marin did propose we wore them, but I laughed in her face. She got all butthurt and I poked her, which annoyed her further. "What do we need to hide from?" I had teased 3 days earlier. "Angry mobs?" Marin shoved me, her lips curling. "Take this seriously for once." 6 hours later, a 4th child went missing from her yard. Now, all eyes were on us. Literally, Eris texted me that morning and told me a white van was stalking his house. May got attacked by a hysterical parent, and Marin was getting threatening letters in her mailbox. "Noah Presley!" The woman shouted my name again, pulling me out of my reverie, and this time I couldn't ignore her. Ace's presence made it 100 times worse. Lifting my head, a shiver sliding down my spine, phantom bugs filling my mouth, every face had turned towards me. Mostly adults, but some kids and teenagers. Ace and his gang were clearly enjoying this. Ace was built like a brick wall, shabby red hair hanging in his eyes, quintessential high school jock. His friends were a wiry-looking brunette with a gap in his tooth. I forget his name, I think it was Sam. as well as Nancy Totem, the principal's daughter, also the she-devil incarnate. Her blonde ponytail and crimson lipstick grin still gives me nightmares. When the boy folded his arms, a twisted smile stretching across his lips, I had to resist the overwhelming urge to dump my shake over his head. "Yo, Scooby-Doo," Ace spoke up, his friends laughing. "Don't ignore the lady." I was tired. I was so damn tired, and part of me just wanted to quit. It had been exactly 16 days, 4 hours, and however many seconds since I was almost gutted by Lady Thorne. The only people who knew about it were Marin, Eris, and May. These people didn't care that I almost died. They didn't care that I still had marks around my wrists from the rope burn. They were selfish, entitled brats, and I was supposed to be the brat. I could already feel an uncomfortable heat spreading across my face, my hands going into my lap. I hated when they looked at me like that. So many faces, so many judgmental eyes burning into me with the exact same question that a 13-year-old shouldn't have to answer. Still, though, I was expected to fulfill the promise I'd made as a kid. So I twisted around, mustering a patient smile. Yeah?" She didn't smile back, her eyes narrowing. I eyed my mostly empty shake again, wondering if I had enough left for 2 targets. "Where are our children?" The rest of the diner erupted into low murmurs. I had to think about my answer. If I lied to please them, future Noah was screwed. But if I was honest and told them I had zero idea, they would freak out. I cleared my throat. "There," I sucked on my teeth, maintaining a strained smile. "Somewhere?" The look on the woman's face told me my response wasn't the reassurance she wanted. In fact, this 6-foot-something lady looked ready to swing on me. "Somewhere," Ace snorted, his gaze finding mine. "Did you hear that, folks? Our very own Scooby-Damn-Doo says your children are somewhere." He cocked his head. "Where's the rest of the gang?" Instead of answering him, I turned away, my cheeks burning. "Hey, Presley," Ace hollered. "Where's the rest of the Scooby-Doo freaks, huh? Are they looking for the kids or not?" Maintaining my smile, I offered him a shrug. "I don't know, Ace," I squeezed out. "Why don't you try looking for them?" He scoffed. "The last time I checked, you were the one in the mystery gang, and you can't even find your own friends." I felt my own lips twitch into a smile that wasn't mine. I mean, it didn't feel like mine. "Well, why do I have to, huh?" I spoke up, the words tumbling out of my mouth. "I don't see you lifting a finger." I felt my head jerk, but I didn't remember moving it. "I don't even want to find those stupid kids. I hate doing this." I stood up, my mind swimming. My words felt like mine. Ace's smile faded, his eyes darkening. When he got to his feet, stomping his way towards me, I considered making a break for it, but then I would be seen as a coward. The kid situated himself in front of my booth, arms folded, eyes wild. "What the hell did you just say to me?" This was the point when I'd smile through my teeth and say something like, "Nothing, have a good night, Ace." Instead, my words were mine again. "I don't want to be here," I spat. "I want to go home." Suddenly my mouth was empty. Something inside my mind shattered, unraveling, and I felt it, a tightening around my wrists and threaded through my fingers. It felt like I blinked slowly and I was aware of myself blinking, aware of a sudden intense bright light behind me, and eyes. Big eyes, small eyes, eyes shaded with glasses, so many eyes on me. Ace was frozen in front of me, but he looked wrong. His face was too perfect, sculpted, carved into a frozen laughing grin. I could see what he was made up of. I could see his mechanical mouth sliding up and down, lines sliced straight through his head. There was no Ace. Or there was, but this boy wasn't made of flesh and blood. The others. The woman who was glaring at me, and the kids in the booth behind me. All of them hung, suspended from crisscrossing lines. With a trembling hand, I reached forward and touched the lines. They were physical bouncing strings. I looked up, and there they all were. Oh no. Strings. They held him, making Ace dance like a puppet. Nancy was the same. I could see where her brain used to be, now a hollow cavern that had been hollowed out. Slowly, my attention was drawn to my own strings. They were small, tangled around my wrists and fingers. I could feel them writhing inside me, twisting and pulling my body. Unlike them, I was alive, somehow, while their bodies were corpses hanging from strings. I still had substance. My legs and arms felt real, but these strings were enough to make my body jerk, a scream slipping from my mouth. Part of me remembered something important. I was in a car, barreling towards a lake. I couldn't move, my head's bouncing against the glass of the window. It was pitch black, and all I could see outside was a small figure. And then, nothing. I barely recognized my own cry, an animalistic shriek that belonged to someone else. God damn, can someone please get a hold of the boy? Warm arms wound around me and I was screaming. Jazz, you have to calm down for me, all right? A man was in front of me, cradling my cheeks. I couldn't see his face, but somehow I trusted his touch. Close your eyes for me, he said softly. Just close your eyes, and everything will be okay. I shook my head, hysterical. The pressure of his fingers on my temples hurt. Jazz, you need to listen to me. His voice grew into a hiss. You're not working like you should, and if they figure that out, they will make you into something more permanent. His fingers danced across my temples, soothing me. Right now, you are a living doll. It's not ideal, but Marin demands it. If they realize you are broken, Marin will move on to the next stage. I felt him shake me, his fingernails digging into my shoulder. Close your eyes, and I will make it all go away. I did, squeezing my eyes shut. I was in a car, I managed to whisper. My memories were like faded footprints in sand, and a vicious tide was coming in. Yes, you were in a car. Marin took you, but you are safe, the man said softly. Now sleep, Jazz. Just go to sleep. What I was 100% sure of was that I wasn't a teenage boy from the town of Middleview. His voice lulled me into blissful, peaceful darkness. Before the dark spat me back out. Oi, what did I just tell you about making stupid speeches? For a disorienting second, I held on to my fading thoughts. I was in a car. Noah! Pain. It was only brief. Like being stung in the back of my skull. Reality contorted and I was back in the diner. There was a shadow in front of me, a finger that kept prodding me. Bathed in the warm orange glow of the setting sun, Eris was sitting in front of me, sporting a pair of Ray-Bans, head inclined like a damn puppy. No, I wasn't falling for it. I could sense he was peeved at me, more like a rabid dog. I could have sworn Eris looked older, maybe by a year. His hair had grown out darker, less golden retriever. Dude, are you crying? No, I swiped at my eyes, shaking my head. Allergies. Where did Ace go? Ace McIntyre? He laughed, slurping his shake. He graduated like a year ago. Eris plucked off his glasses, settling them on the blonde curls. He was scowling at me like my disappointed dad. Speaking of my dad, I had a day to convince him to cancel this stupid summer camp plan. I leaned back, aware of a tightening sensation around my wrists. What did I do wrong now? Eris folded his arms. You're on Facebook. His eyebrow quirked. Even better. You're on the Mom Safety Group. Someone recorded your little speech at the winter fair, which, yeah, you were right, but like I already told you, you're just putting a target on our heads. Eris's passive-aggressive scolding drowned out, and I found my gaze wandering, scanning the ceiling. Noah, are you even listening to me? I snapped out of it when Eris clapped his hands in front of my face. I found my voice, noticing the fur on his jacket. It's July, I said in a scoff. However, when I turned my attention to what I was drinking, I had a coffee beverage I didn't remember ordering. It's 90 degrees, I shoved him playfully. Why are you wearing a coat? Eris did the slow head tilt thing again, though this time it was more of a tease. He leaned forward, pressing the back of his hand against my forehead. Nope, you're not warm. The boy sat back with an exaggerated sigh. Do you still have a concussion from falling out of Lord Farron's bedroom window? I did tell you to get checked out, but no, you didn't want to get caught by your dad. Instead of answering him, my gaze flicked to the window. Hollow branches that I remembered being in a lush summer bloom gently rapped against the glass. The sidewalk was covered in a flaky white dusting. Snow. I watched Jessica S. slip on ice and spill her coffee. Slowly, I turned back to Eris, my stomach rolling. "How old are we?" I asked through a breath. Eris frowned. 14? He said through a nervous laugh. "The last time I checked." "But we were 13, I whispered, and it was summer vacation." I looked down at myself, grasping at my own thick coat and scarf. I'm going crazy. How could I have skipped a whole year? Eris slurped his shake loudly, prodding me hesitantly. "You're scaring me." I straightened up. "Did we find those kids?" Eris's eyes darkened. "Noah? Even for you, this isn't funny." "Noah," I thought dizzily. For a terrifying moment, I wasn't sure that was my name. Eris leaned forward, his expression softening. "I know you don't want to see a private therapist, but my dad can get you one." I flinched when he reached out, grasping my hand. His touch felt familiar, comforting. "You're a sucker for hiding your emotions, man." Eris's lips formed a small smile. "You do realize you can talk to any of us at any point, right?" "Eris," I said his name the second I saw the lines tangled around his neck, choking him, but he couldn't see them. Barf crept up my throat. Just like Ace, the lines sliced through his face, stretching and pulling my best friend's expression into a perfect smile. Eris's head lightly flopped onto his shoulder. "Hmm? Can't you see them?" I managed to get out. "See what?" Eris's frown deepened, and I followed the strings threaded through his lips and latched to his eyes. "Hell," he whispered. "Are you seeing, like, dead ghost children?" My words choked up when the girls slumped down in front of us. May set down a hot fudge sundae in front of me. Her dark hair was in her usual pigtails, but this time there were pink streaks dyed at the ends. "There, one double chocolate fudge sundae with all of the toppings, extra cream, and a whittle wafer for our little baby." She settled me with a grin. "Are you happy now?" Marin was shivering, wrapping her scarf tighter around her neck. She nursed her own coffee in her hands. "I can't believe you made us walk halfway across town to buy you literal diabetes." Believe it. The words weren't mine, and neither were my body movements. They came like a wave of ice water. I was aware of them again, strings. And this time they pricked and pulled me, forcing my facial expression into a wide smile. I poked her with a grin, downing what I can only describe as sour cream mixed with out-of-date milkshake. I had to bite back the urge to throw it back up, my gut twisting. Eris didn't speak, his gaze glued to me. I think he was waiting for me to explain my lapse in sanity. The girls, however, didn't seem to notice. May rolled her eyes before sitting back with a sigh. She tugged off her coat. "Get a room," she teased. "Anyway, so I talked to Gracie Carmen this morning. She's still crying and not saying a word about her sister." She definitely did it. Eris's suspicious gaze left me. He snuck a few of Marin's fries, stuffing them into his mouth, speaking through fry mush. "It's obvious our friend Gracie was jealous of her 3-time pageant-winning sister." I stood up, my legs threatening to give way. "I need to go," was all I could choke out. May frowned. "What? But we just got here." Her words were cut off suddenly when my vision blurred again. I was outside, snow dancing on my cheeks. I was staring at a little girl standing perfectly still. She was alone, waiting for her mom to get coffee. Before I could stop myself, I was in front of her. Something sharp stung my fingers, squeezed into my fist. The little girl's strings were making her dance, just like my friends. So I stood on my tiptoes, reaching out and severing the lines splicing her face. The girl dropped to the floor, limp, broken. Splat. I stumbled back, bile creeping up my throat, but feeling her strings between my fingers, slick and warm in my hands. It felt good. I was awake. For the first time in so long, I was aware of everyone's strings. I could sever them when I wanted, freeing them from their pain. It started with the girl, before I cut my neighbor's strings too. Then Freddie, one of the boys in my class. I sliced his strings open and gave him life. I woke him up from the nightmare. I had already died. I had died multiple times. Ripped apart, stabbed, shot, and even crowned king of a kid cult. But I kept coming back. I felt each one in vivid detail. My body coming apart, unraveling. But then it was followed by, "Cut!" and I'd be yanked to my feet and dragged back to the room of concrete, the place where I'd be put back together. I started to laugh, hysterical giggles taking over. I didn't want to live forever. I didn't want to live forever. I didn't want to live forever. Forever is cruel and excruciating. Forever is a fate worse than death. I laughed when I cut my own strings, experimenting with which ones would hurt. I laughed when I cut other strings, slicing all the way through their lines. By then, I used the night as my comfort, my accomplice in freeing townspeople from the town that did not exist. Eris was kidnapped by a psycho cult and tied to a conveyor belt. I found him before Marin, tracking my friend to the old sawmill. "Noah!" His eyes were wide with relief, muffling through a strip of duct tape. "Get me out of here!" Eris screamed muffled. I mean, I wanted to, but Eris Kane didn't exist. The boy underneath him, whose body was being puppeteered, dangled on strings, did. "Noah, untie me!" The boy's eyes widened, pain crumpling his expression. "It's okay," I told him. "You'll come back." "What?" Eris muffled cried. "Are you insane?" I didn't move, and Eris started to shriek, flailing in his restraints. I watched him get inches from the grinding blades before I stepped into the shadows, allowing Marin to take center stage. Her screams and the sound of Eris's body being ground into mincemeat barely fazed me, because, just like everyone else, Eris Kane would come back. Then I showed all of them. On the night we ventured into the string factory, I showed my friends our reality. "See?" I cut into May's strings, cutting her down. Marin stumbled back, hysterical. Eris grabbed onto her hand but was on her knees, screaming, covered in strings. I didn't realize I was giggling until I heard myself, until I saw myself. My hands were stained with blood, strings clinging to my nails. I found Eris's eyes that for once were willing to listen and understand. I grabbed his shoulders, shaking him, my breath in my throat. "Please," I whispered. "Eris, you have to listen to me." He nodded slowly, his gaze glued to May's corpse. "I'm listening, Noah." I wrapped my arms around him, burying my head in his chest. "It's not real." Eris dropped to the ground, just like May. When I looked up, his strings had been cut. Marin screamed, her eyes wide, her cries rattling my skull. Focusing on Marin, I held the girl, forcing her to look at me. "You need to remember." I shook her. "Marin, do you hear me? Remember this. Remember this moment no matter what, all right?" Her vacant eyes didn't find me, only oblivion. When she was taken away, still screaming, a firm hand fell on my shoulder, followed by a prick in the back of my neck. "Jazz." I was expecting them to take me away again, but I wasn't expecting them to extract me from Middleview. When I woke up, my brain full of fog, the walls around me were pristine white, and I was sitting on an oddly comfortable chair, my wrists pinned down, and when I looked down, I saw my real age, and yet I couldn't remember anything about the boy who was not Noah Presley. "It's okay, Jazz. We're not on stage right now, you can relax." The man in front of me wore a mask, a white lab coat draped over casual jeans and a t-shirt. Around me, what looked like a playroom. There were colorful foam squares littering the floor. "Is this necessary?" I asked, pulling at the Velcro straps. The man did a slow head incline. "Jazz, are you aware of what you have been doing?" "Freeing people?" I said, trying to ignore the warm red seeping from my nose. Before I could answer, he cleared his throat. "This is your last chance." The man stood, and his tone was scarily final. "If you cut any more strings, we will be forced to do something we really do not want to do." I scoffed, swiping at my nose. "Sure, old man." I flinched when he stood up, ripping me free from the chair. The man gently pulled me to my feet. "Jazz, what are you not understanding? This is that we have to do this. Trust me when I say the last thing I want to do is this." I felt myself break, my scoff bleeding into a sob. "Then why are you doing this?" Instead of answering, the man led me out of the room and down a long white corridor. We passed another room, and I glimpsed May sitting static on a small bed. Her strings were being measured, threaded through her skin. I turned back to the man, but movement caught my eye, a figure bleeding into the background. I thought it was a nurse before I noticed thick blonde hair sticking from a clinical blue cap. Eris. So much older, almost a fully grown adult. He was loose of his strings, but could see the bruising around his eyes and lips, where strings had contorted his face. Dressed in hospital scrubs and armed with a scalpel, the boy lifted a finger to his lips in a shh motion. He was already reading my mind. Don't do anything stupid, his eyes glared at me. I found my voice, focusing on the doctor who was watching May with a sullen expression. What are they doing to her? Prepping her. The man's voice was cold. I told you not to push, Noah. In the corner of my eye, Eris was getting closer. He moved like a predator, already reaching for the scalpel tucked into his belt. In a single strike, the doctor was dead, and Eris was stumbling into me, hugging me. Then he punched me in the face, which hurt. The guy has the audacity to wave his fist, mouthing ow when I was the one hurt. Hey! He punched me again. A mysterious woman invites us to work for a child and fake our deaths, and you don't think that's a little weird? Eris's voice was different, like a whole other person. What the hell? I hissed. What was that for? Instead of replying, the guy pulled me into another annoyingly suffocating hug. You're an idiot, and I hate you, and I want to say I told you so right now, but that can wait until we get the girls. I found myself pulling away. Did you, Eris, since when could you one-shot a fully grown man? I eyed the pistol tucked into the doctor's belt. Who is armed? Eris did the head tilt thing again, except this time it was tragic, like he was trying to hold back another sob. Jazz, he grabbed my shoulders trying to smile. Look, I don't know what they did to us, and I don't want to know. That little girl is a psychopath. His voice broke. But you do know who I am, right? I didn't. Jazz. His tone was harsher, more desperate. It's me, Eris whispered. It's Peter. And that's the end of this part. I really hope you enjoy it, and I hope you've been enjoying the Strings series so far. If you liked the video, give it a like. Maybe let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe if you want to hear more. There's also, well, I guess if you're on the podcast, there's only so much you can do, like Spotify. But hey, if you can leave your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. If you'd like to come join our Discord, we do have that available. It's a nice little place right now. And if you'd like to support the channel more than just liking and whatnot, well, there's a Patreon for that too, so that's cool. But hey, I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you're enjoying this series so far, and we'll see you in the next video.